Hey, this is Jenn Gray, your host of Be Genuine with Jenn podcast, where we discover how our authenticity is our superpower. I am so excited you've joined me for today's episode. Let's get started. Hey friends, good morning. Hope you guys are doing so well. It is Jenn Gray, your host of Be Genuine with Jenn podcast. I am so excited about today's episode. You guys are going to fall in love with a new great friend of mine. I am so confident of it. Let me introduce you to her. We are diving into the inspiring journey of a woman who chose to go all in on her dreams of helping others find their soulful prosperity. Jenn Maher is a mom, entrepreneur, and life coach who rewrote her life script of a super successful real estate career to build a new life of purpose, all while stepping into her true, genuine, authentic self. Welcome to the show, my new friend, Soulful prosperity coach, and someone you're going to want to connect with, Jenn Maher.
Hi, so good to be here. How are you?
So good. How are you?
Fantastic.
I'm going to put this on Do Not Disturb because, hello, ADD will kick in.
Yes, I live on Do Not Disturb.
Yes, you're so good. I do always notice that. I see your notifications have been silenced. I'm like, that's so smart because otherwise, everybody gets control of your world.
Absolutely.
So I am super excited for our conversation today. And the whole premise of this podcast is honestly just to highlight people who've bet on themselves, who have said, you know what, I was headed in one direction. Then I truly discovered a different purpose or a different, part of me, or I grew into this, or I healed from this. And therefore, this is what came out of that. And so I would love for you just to share your story from the perspective of the fact that your authenticity is your superpower. You finding out who you truly are shifted your life. And so I'd love for you to take us on that journey wherever you want to start. So it's all yours, my friend.
Okay. So it's really been quite a journey. And there's been times in my life where I kind of had felt I was there, and then something else happens, and then you peel away more layers, right? And then you get into your authenticity even deeper and deeper and deeper, So I overcame drug addiction, life on the streets, got pregnant, and had my daughter under some of the most difficult circumstances in my 20s. And then I dove in and, became superwoman, not always super mom, but I'm here now to make up for that, but superwoman to, make up for my 20s and, became like an overachiever and over people pleasing. Let me handle everything. I mean, I have founded like 10 organizations, done all kinds of things, which led me to some really great levels of success. But until about 2 years ago, and I should step back a little bit. And through the pandemic, something switched in me. I really tapped into a higher version of myself, and started to sense that there was more for me. And when I say more, I don't mean more cars, more houses, more things. I meant more in my personal growth, my personal development, in my spiritual world and relationships and all of that stuff, right? The soulful prosperity stuff. And so that seed was planted, but 15 years ago, or it's 20 years ago now, I became an ordained Buddhist priest. So I've been on the journey for a really long time. I'm an ordained Buddhist meditation teacher. That's from like almost 20 years ago. So on that journey, and keep thinking, okay, here I am. I'm there. I've arrived. I'm being me. I'm authentic. And then about 2 years ago, 2 days ago, I had my world ripped out from underneath me, my professional world and my financial world. My income came to a grinding halt. My life savings, basically investment, gone, and I was immediately okay. I immediately was able to pivot on a dime, go all in on my coaching business, like you mentioned earlier. But I unearthed something really deep. And I call it your shadow why. And so I realized at this point that all of that success being a community leader, being an industry leader, climbing, beating records in the real estate industry and doing all those things. I founded my local business council. Putnam County Business Council. I founded the Women's Council of Realtors. I founded the chapter of New York State Commercial Association of Realtors. I founded the Women's League of Voters. Like, doing all this stuff, my why was not sustainable because it wasn't authentic. My why was just trying so desperately not to be that person or that version of myself in my 20s or before that I was just so busy with this persona and this mask of woman, so that no one would look deep, or they would just love me so much because I did so much for them, for the community, that it would be accepted. But the truth is, I didn't accept it. And I was walking around for all those years driven by shame and guilt. And that was like, whoa. So I spent 2 years doing something called shadow work. And shadow work is a seed that was planted in me when I first got off the streets. It was a book I read and kind of just went in the background, but it kept coming back in my Buddhist studies and in all, I'm kind of a spiritual mutt. I'm always hungry and looking for more. Mm-hmm. And so that premise, although the word shadow work didn't come up, but the premise of shadow work just kept coming up and kept coming up. And so when this boom, life-altering event happened, I knew I had to go deeper. I knew that I sensed that I hadn't arrived at being able to answer that question of who am I? And so for the first time in my entire life, I know the answer to that question. I know what my purpose here is in every pore in my body. I know it and I embody it. And so shadow work is, to me, one of the most powerful things you can do to get into your authenticity. So let me explain to you a little bit about what it is. So shadow work is the original psychologist that created this process of shadow work is Carl Jung. Very, very, very famous philosophist, psychologist, all kinds of different things in that personal growth, personal development era. And so shadow work is where you get into your wholeness. So we all have shadows. There are light shadows and there are dark shadows. Let me give you an example. So the dark shadows are things, and the way to recognize shadows are when you get triggered, right? So when somebody opens their mouth and you're immediately annoyed, there's a shadow there. And then also on the light shadow side, when somebody is like doing something and you feel like a little envious or you wish you were like them, that's a light shadow. So you are both not in your wholeness. If you can recognize grace, poise, productivity, whatever it is that you admire in other people, that means that it's within you and you haven't really quite cultivated or gave it a seat at the table. And on the flip side, the dark shadow, so for me, I'll give you a good example. 2 of my dark shadows were fear and laziness. Now, nobody in the world in my life, in the last whatever, would ever say Jenn Maher is afraid and lazy. Never. You know why? Because I spent every ounce of my energy hiding that, avoiding that. And it was my biggest trigger. I tortured my daughters in so many ways. I would be so kind of judgmental and, lecturing about laziness. And so through this shadow work process, I realized why I'm triggered by that, right? So anything that triggers you, you literally say, I am lazy. I am lazy. I am lazy, which is counterintuitive, right? Because we learn about affirmations. But really the thing is, with every negative, there is a positive. So when you are denying the potential in you to be lazy, to be fearful, to be a liar, to be a thief, whatever. When you're denying that potential in yourself, you are denying all of the amazing things, right? Because with every negative, there's a positive. So if you're denying that you're capable of these things, you're also denying all your potentiality of all the beautiful things that you could possibly be, because we are everything. We already are. And so when I accepted this, took my shadow in, I do a process of like giving it a name, right? Lazy Lisa. So when I gave Lazy Lisa a seat at the table, what used to be my lazy time was guilt-ridden, potato couch all weekend long, because I work like a dog, and potato couch, eating things that made me feel guilty. I wasn't even enjoying it. Maybe drinking a bottle of wine, whatever, right? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any of that, but my lazy time was filled with guilt because I had not fully embraced. And so once I embraced this shadow, this dark shadow of laziness to me, right? I was able to look at the gifts. What are the gifts? How has this laziness served me in my life? What has it done for me, right? And really examine that. And then, like I said, gave it a seat at the table. Okay, Lazy Lisa, what is it that you need and want? And now my laziness has converted into more creativity. That laziness gives me the space that I need to get creative, to have fun, to be playful, to be adventurous. So I'm not saying I'm never a couch potato, but probably like 1/10 of what I used to be. And by the way, when I do it now, it feels so well earned, although it always was. Okay.
Right.
So well earned, so much more enjoyable, so much this. So just by embracing that and coming, and so now that's authenticity, right? I'm freaking lazy. Woo! So what? I'm still me, right? I'm still whatever. You can even still have these personas because the personas serve a purpose. You just come to realize that that's what they are. They are not who you genuinely are. And so that's a really good example of embracing a dark shadow. And it's just freeing. It's empowering and amazing.
Well, and I connect so deeply is I feel like I'm all about reframing, right? Like you said, you're like putting everything in the positive spin, but sometimes we don't feel the weight of something or let it really sink in genuinely. It's like, and I hate the term toxic positivity because I'm like, there's always a reason to find something. But I also see like what, as you're just saying, and I'm like, oh my goodness, if we just call a spade, then we just deal with it, right?
Yes.
We're like, hey, I can speak that. Yes, I lied about 2 decades of my life with a hair condition. Like I completely lied. And I had to own the fact that I could give you 20 defenses of it.
Yeah.
I chose to lie. And I chose that to be my defense mechanism until I took that on me. But it doesn't, and I love what you just, like, it doesn't change your worth. It doesn't change who you are. It doesn't change anything. In fact, you're actually removing the shame you've given it by shifting the light that it has in your life. Going, like, literally, I mean, it could be like mic drop right there, because I think that's so powerful. Because before, and I talk a lot about self-forgiveness. So I think in my own healing journey, coming to the realization of I can let my past like shame and add dark shadows constantly. Or what I can do is I can forgive myself for making the decisions that I now know that are different, because hurt people, and I made very hurtful decisions. But until I owned those decisions, I could not move forward, right? So like you're saying, until you own these parts of our life, then you don't move forward into authentically who you really are.
Absolutely. And so the other big one was fear. It's like I operated and made a lot of decisions out of fear, even up until 2 years ago, with all of that personal development and all that work. And so, look, fear, I think fear and laziness, when it boils down to all of us, those are two big obstacles in our life. And so embracing that fear serves us in so many ways. I'm sure it saved me in so many ways. But when we deny it, act like I'm big bad Jen, so strong, so tough, and we're denying the fear becomes more powerful and it actually holds you hostage. Where now I can bring the fear up, right? Fearful Franny, bring her up. What's going on? What do you need? What can I do for you? You're here for a reason. And then actually listen, get into that stillness and pay attention. Give it the attention it deserves. And now it doesn't hold you hostage. You're not on autopilot like most of us are on. And I've lived a lot of my life that way. So there's zero judgment, right? But once you awaken, it's like amazing to be able to recognize that. And it doesn't change. It doesn't go away. You can just now alchemize it. You can now turn it into something that's going to fuel your growth rather than hold you hostage and have you, not making big, bold decisions or moves or not having the difficult conversations. Not having difficult conversation is what brought my entire business down. That one thing, the fear of having those difficult conversations, like mind blowing. Okay. Right. Yeah. So owning up to that, I'm scared and lazy. Okay. All of a sudden I am so empowered through all of it. And you know what? I still have, like, you're aware of some of the things in my life right now there, but I'm in the center and I'm okay. Right. And I talk about freedom and joy, right? My goal as Soulful Prosperity Coach is to help entrepreneurs and business owners grow joy, freedom, and profit. But I use the word joy and not happiness because joy is equanimity. It's where you can be okay no matter what. And you are moving forward with hope no matter what. It's a place of faith and trust, which comes from being in your authenticity. You cannot have faith and trust if you are denying parts of yourself. You're always going to have a doubt. You're always going to be looking over your shoulder. You're always going to have anxiety. You're always going to have fear. You are blocking yourself from your full potential. Because remember, when you're denying your dark sides, you are also denying light, potentiality, and all the beautiful things.
That's so good. I think there's something so powerful is to think, I don't know. I used to think it was like the pendulum swung one side to the other, right? I was either really good or not good and all, but to know that I could be both and, right? Like that's where the joy comes in. I can be going through the hardest season of my life and wake up and still have so much genuine gratitude that both and are okay. And I can hold both things. And for my whole life up till probably I was 38, never experienced that. It was, I have to show up for other people. So I so related to that where you're like overcompensating for other things. I spent my whole adult life overcompensating for all of the below level things that I thought or other people thought of me, or I didn't come from a lot. And so I had all of this that I was carrying, and then I was like overcompensating. And then like you ultimately look in the mirror and you're like you said, who am I was your wake up. Mine was like, I'm living for legacy and I have zero connection with the person I'm looking in the mirror. And I know the legacy that I'm leaving is not honoring who I truly am. Something has to change. Yeah. And I think that's where it's powerful. It's you, again, holding both of those things. That's super, super powerful. So I want to know, so Soulful Prosperity, like where did that name come from? What was that process?
So, I've been building the plane as I'm flying for the past 2 years. Like, I've been coaching realtors for a very long time, over a decade. And I also, through the pandemic is when I started coaching businesses because I was the chairwoman of the local business council and people were freaking out when businesses shut down. And I spent like probably 8 months straight at my dining room table, dressed, heels and all, going live, helping businesses, coaching them through all these different processes, even though I don't know anything about their particular business most of the time. But I also really realized that besides like the practical skills, which I just have like a weird brain that just like knows how to go into a business and help you from A to Z, become more profitable, become more efficient, have a better culture and do all that stuff. It was the spiritual practice. So I struggled for so long, which is why I love Craig so much, right? And David Meltzer, because they embody this being, understanding that you can't build a career, and a business and all of these things without putting, you can call it a spiritual practice, or you can call it stillness, or you can call it whatever you want, a connection to the universe, connection to nature. There's so many ways to do it, right? There's a Buddhist saying that there's 85,000 vessels to get to the other shore. They call the other shore non-suffering. I call it joy. And that joy is where you are okay no matter what. You get into a space of just knowing. You know exactly what the next right thing to do is. You don't even have to start making choices and decisions and driving yourself crazy. You intuitively know. And that's soulful prosperity. So you're building, because I truly believe as human beings, it is our job to earn. We cannot help other people. We cannot be present for our family. We cannot if we are stressed out about money. So it is our job to earn and help. And so that's where soulful prosperity comes from, because truly it's not sustainable if you don't have that soulful connection. If you are not nourishing your soul, nourishing your spirit, nourishing your body, taking care of those, basic fundamentals of eating, breathing, sleeping, moving, sharpening your mind, right? I don't know if you know anything about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but that foundation, you cannot go higher if you're not taking care of those basic needs. And that's where the soulful prosperity comes from. And I've been teaching business owners, KPIs are really important. But if you're not measuring the things that are going to give you the energy, the power, the drive, the motivation, then your KPIs are not going to matter, because they may grow, but they're going to implode. You're going to sacrifice your family, sacrifice your religions, because you're not in check. So measuring, right? Whatever the things are that make you feel whole, and you can't master every fundamental. Okay. So I move my body every day. I average now about 13,000 steps a day, which I'm super excited and proud of. And I do Kundalini yoga every single day, but I'm not looking to be master and be a gym rat. Sorry. I love gym rat. So I am not judging you. I am jealous. Okay. But that's not what I'm looking to master, but I am looking to master sharpening my mind. I am looking, and I'm also not mastering nutrition, but I am mastering breath. I am mastering. So you're not going to master all of them, but you want to make sure all of those are, covered, and then focus on the ones that you're really going to dig in. And that's where the soulful prosperity comes from. It's not that I want to be Jenn Maher, #1 coach in the world, or this and that. I want to grow as a human being, and part of that human being, part of that experience is earning.
Absolutely. I love that you said that. I love the conversation around money when we just recognize it's just an energy source, right? It's not this evil thing. And I think the first thing I had to do in my life was rid myself of all of the wiring that was done around that money was evil. I mean, I literally grew up with all those statements, right? Money is the root of all evil. And, the heart is deceitful and wicked and all. And I think that everything is so spun to where you question your own intuition and you completely think that the fact of growing wealth is something that's horrible. And I'm like, no, actually just reveals who you ultimately are. But I also want to add on to what you just said. I don't think any of us who've ever been through seasons of life where we have no idea how we're going to pay for next month's bills, there's no way we can say to anyone, I am living in my most peaceful state when that happens. No, you're living in chaos and your life is in an upheaval because, like you just said, our basic needs aren't being met. But right. Even bigger than that, like we are built and created for abundance. And when we believe that, then that's where it all lines up. And another thing I want to touch on is maybe it's not even business. Maybe it's relationships or other areas of your life. When on the outside, it could look really, really, really successful, like you who built a crazy successful real estate. That there's no takeaway from that. You built that. You did that. Your own manpower and your own work ethic. Like you did that. But the reason it imploded ultimately is because it didn't satisfy who you were to the core.
Oh, yeah.
When you build something from your core values, and that's something that I encourage everyone, like in the beginning of anything, find out who you are. Like for me, kindness, empathy, and excellence is who I am. Everything that I do in whatever direction I go in, that's who I am, and that's the value that I want to add. And so I think recognizing that maybe outside, like someone today may be listening, and the outside perception of your life, just as Jenn Maher was, just like I have been, looked really, 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 really good. But living every single day with an emptiness and a longing for something bigger and deeper, then that's what we're talking about. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, wholeheartedly. It's, when that's where those questions of who am I and why am I here, being able to answer that and then align yourself. I love that you talk about your virtues, right? Align yourself. Mine's like spirituality, brave, forgiveness. I have my whole list here. Hope, zest, curiosity, taking the time to identify those virtues and then aligning your life with them. And then also making that shift from I have to do this or I have to do that. Making that shift into I get to do this, right? And I get to do that. And so when you are identify your virtues and what's truly important to you and start being able to answer who am I and why am I here and aligning your actions with that, the depression disappears, the anxiety disappears. I like to call that the integrity gap, right? Where are you at now and what are you capable of? So what are the actions that you get to take, right? Because you get to take it, because you get to go on that journey and become this highest and best version of you. So now it's more of like, what are the actions that I get to take to align myself? Because when you start to align yourself with your virtues, identify those virtues and aligning yourself with them, that's when you begin to experience the joy, the ease, the knowing, living in flow, living in creativity. And that's what it's all about.
Totally. Okay, so take us on your journey specifically. I know you mentioned that your career was imploding, right? It went from really successful, so you're clearly searching for what the next step is, but you very verifiably could have just gone and rebuilt your real estate, right? You could have just been like, this is what I know how to do. I'm just going to go rebuild and that, but you didn't. You made a shift. And so someone else in that situation, what did that look like? Like, how did you decide to literally bet on yourself completely and have the confidence and the courage and the bravery to put your fear and laziness aside and to try something new?
So thankfully I had already begun like tapping into this highest version of myself, tapping into the universe, and had begun to listen, had begun to witness miracles and the signs that the universe sends you so that you can be in knowing and know, there's signs every day that show you that you're in alignment or you're out of alignment. And so I was already going in that direction, but I was operating out of fear, afraid to let go of the real estate. And I had been in leadership. I hadn't been in sales for a while. So I really didn't want to go back. This is a crazy market too, to like just go back into it. And it's not that I can't, I totally could, but it would be doing all the things that I don't want to do anymore. Okay. I was a single mom for 26 out of the 28 years of my real estate career, and a true single mom for one daughter. So I already knew, and I had been able to, I teach a couple of things one thing is called becoming anti-fragile. And so becoming anti-fragile is where you begin to recognize that things are happening for you, and you actually get excited when shit burritos get thrown into your life, thrown onto your plate, because you are now aware that there's an amazing, new, better, improved, more ascended, more expanded version of you on the other side of this challenge. So although I was afraid I didn't have a big nest egg. I didn't have capital to do this. I didn't have any of it. I was in a place of faith and trust. And I built that up, and I created what I also call emotional stamina, because I had been doing the actions, the meditation, the breath work, the taking care of myself physically, Kundalini yoga, all of these things habitually for years. And so when the shit burrito gets handed to you, you have a resource, a whole well to dig into. So even though you may be low energy, you're able to raise that energy up right away because you have these resources. And also doubling down. So when things got rough and I made this decision to go all in, I didn't give myself excuses. And here's the thing, Jen, the whole world will collaborate with your bullshit. Oh, you've just been through so much. You should, take some time off, or you should just go get a job. You should, blah, 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 right? They will collaborate. All of your limiting beliefs, the world will collaborate with you. They think that they're helping you. They think that they're supporting you, but they're not. Because they're just also justifying their own bullshit by justifying yours. They can stay in their comfort zone if they're telling you to do the same. So just having that emotional stamina built up through my foundational habits, that's where the faith and trust comes from. I used to have a negative relationship with the word faith because I have a very interesting religious background. Mm-hmm. And I don't feel that way anymore. I love all religions. I believe all of them at the core have the same message. It's us human beings that mess things up. But, faith comes from that action that I spoke about in the integrity gap, right? And so even if you take the slightest action forward, you're building confidence. You're building motivation because you should be celebrating whatever that small action is. Yeah. And that's where motivation comes from. People are like, I'm not motivated. Well, because you're not doing anything. Nobody can motivate you. I always say, that expression, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Well, I'm really good at making people thirsty, but I still can't make you drink. And so that action is where you're going to find that motivation, where you're going to have less depression, where you're going to have less anxiety, because you are now aligning yourself with your virtues, with your deepest desires. And that's how you do it.
That's so good. Oh my gosh. I'm nodding my head. I feel like my head's going to fall off because we
definitely are aligned with each other. I know that.
So much. But oh my gosh, just going back to having the faith with action, first of all, I think that's so huge, right? It's and not settle into excuses. That's where I wanted to focus on, because if you just let's say you are researching something, or you in your heart of hearts, your knowing says no, this isn't right. You can Google the question and find an article to match whatever you want it to match, right?
Yes.
You can find any support.
The whole universe will justify your bullshit.
Everything. And until you say, no, I'm done with the bullshit, I'm ready to be authentic and to be genuine and to come in and just call it out what it is. And that's, oh my gosh, I had to call my own self out on so much that I was but again, I had chosen for decades to spin it right. So you can spin it however it's palatable for everybody else to make yourself look a certain kind of way. But one thing that only you can do is go to bed on your pillow at night and know who you are to your core. And just like you were talking about, showing up for yourself, y'all, that we lie to ourselves. We are the biggest liars to ourselves. And if we talk to other people and set commitments to other people like we do ourselves, we have no relationships. People all the time, Jen, how do you get up at 5 a.m. and go work out? And I'm like, because I set my alarm and I told myself on January 1st, enough was enough. I'm tired of the yo-yo. My mind is stronger than my feelings, and I'm going to do it.
Yeah, our bodies are running our lives, I'm too cold, I'm too tired. But so there's a lot of science behind that too. Your body wants to stay in its comfort zone. It it doesn't know the difference between someone having like a knife to your throat and getting up at 5 a.m. and going to the gym. It's different. We don't know it. There, so, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but not really physiologically. Your body doesn't know the difference between excitement and anxiety. It shows up the same exact way. Mm-hmm. And so anything new, your body and your emotions start to try to stay in that comfort zone. They're just trying to keep you safe. Right. And so you have to get on the other side of those, and you cannot let those thoughts and emotions that your body is just using to keep you safe because it doesn't know any better, run your life. That is not who you are. Who you are is in your seat of consciousness, which is why it's so important to journal. So I haven't had a drink in 3 years. Given my background, I probably never should have been drinking, right? I mean, I was a drug addict in my 20s. Like, what the hell was I even thinking? No regrets. I think it gave me a lot of confidence and bravado and different things that created this whole persona around it. It worked in the business world because alcohol is like celebrated and is the core of so much that goes on in the business world. And it worked. So no regrets. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't soulful prosperity for me. It wasn't nourishing my soul. And so even at a time when I quit alcohol, I didn't have alcohol related issues in my life for a long, long time. But I went back and read my journals, which I had never done. Now I do it weekly. Mm-hmm. I went back and read my journals, whatever. I was cleaning out and I had all these journals and I'm going back and reading them for years and years and years. It said, I wish I didn't drink. I wish I drank less, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. Those were my deepest desires. Who the hell is that person saying, just have a glass of wine? Who is that? That's not me, right? So being able to recognize, Craig calls it the enemy. One of my favorite people, Dr. Phil Stutz, he wrote the book, The Tools, and a whole bunch of other books. He calls it Part X. You can call it whatever you want, but that being able to recognize that voice that's talking you out of your deepest desires is not you.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's like and what does it say? It says, talk to yourself, don't listen to yourself, because we can literally, we're reminding ourselves of truth. And that's one of my favorite things to remind us. It says, I tell myself all the time, think on what is true, Jen, like what is actually true, like how we kind of figure out like what's real fear and what's just like, oh, it's going to be uncomfortable. And I don't really want to do that. Okay. Yeah. Or is it just straight up laziness, but like think on what is true. Is waking up at 5 a.m. going to hurt me physically? Nope. But again, we get into our minds like, and again, and I always know like people who like put me down, like, or they just make side comments about like, well, I don't have to wake up at 5 a.m. to work out. And I'm like, no, you sure don't. But just know that that's a limiting belief that you don't think that you could be a kind of person who woke up at 5 a.m. I don't think there's anything magical about 5 a.m. It's just what time I have to get up to.
There is something magical.
So talk through that. What do you think is magical about the early morning time?
It's a gift of time to yourself. It's before the whole world is awake and wants something from you. And so you can use it to go to the gym. I use it for meditation, exercise, affirmations, breath work, before anybody needs anything, and making that habit of a digital sunset and a digital sunrise, where I'm not diving into. On Mondays, I allow myself, because that keeps me from doing it all weekend. So Monday morning is my one morning, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I don't dive into the phone and the responses and all of that. And I do the same thing in the evening. But the morning is just magical. I began the morning routine when I couldn't afford to send my kids to camp one summer. And or probably many summers back then, but I realized that if I got up at like 3 or 4 in the morning and did all my work and was done by noon, we could go do fun things. And we did, and we had some amazing adventures. It was like some of the best summers of our life, and that's like 15 years ago, and I kept that habit and I've learned that. But I have also come full circle with that. Like I average a minimum of 7 hours sleep, sometimes 6.5, but sometimes 9 or 10. So, I average like 4 or 5 hours sleep in my whole life. because I just have so much I want to do. And I have learned now how to be able to take care of myself. And now I'm back, right? I kind of went full circle. Now I'm back at 5 a.m. And it's easy again. But I had to like give myself a break too. I needed some rest. I needed to not be in that hustle and grind mode and just, get into a flow. So you got to learn how to listen to your body. I forced myself to do the 5 a.m. for many years, and I do believe it's magical, and I believe it's all of those things. But you also got to learn to listen to your intuition, and averaging a good amount of sleep is so important, which I never did.
Right. Oh yeah. Well, because we just think that we're driven and we're going to go, and it's almost like this again badge of honor. I need 4 to 5 hours of sleep, right?
Yes.
I can do all the things.
All these things.
Beyonds are sleeping in the mornings, right? And again, it's this false thing that we just wear as if we needed to be another superwoman in all the areas.
Exactly.
Totally. But I was gonna say something about that, and I totally lost my train of thought. But I was gonna say is, so for me in the afternoons, I would crash like every afternoon, and I would over caffeinate myself. Like I was a Celsius packet, and I say was 3 weeks ago. So this is
good for you.
But so I'm going to this. It's a chiropractor who specializes on brain health and really tapping into. I'm using an app called Brain Tap, which I'm a huge fan of, which is morning, afternoon, evening meditations and
I have a Brain Tap.
All these things. So so now in the afternoons when I feel that slump, and he was able to do a body scan to see my natural ebbs and flows of energy throughout the day. I know that that's the time. It's usually about 1 or 2 o'clock. I'm going to listen to my 15-minute meditation. Usually I end up going into that like delta level sleep, and I come out of it, and it's like 15 minutes of stopping. And I wake up feeling like I could literally run through a brick wall. My energy would have never given me that natural energy, but what my body actually needed was to stop in my brain to recharge and refresh. And instead, I think, and that relates in so many areas of our life.
Coffee doesn't do that.
Yeah, it's just mask it and go. Exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't do that. It doesn't.
No.
Ideally, we should work in 90-minute chunks and get it done in 4.5 hours in a day. So 3 90-minute chunks, and in between, you're breathing, you're moving, hydrating, taking a break, and then only focusing on one thing in those 90 minutes. And you'd be amazed that you can have a 4.5 hour work day and get more done than if you were working 8 hours straight through, downing coffee and Celsius and all these things to make yourself feel better. But listen, my husband right now, still in the hospital, he powered through with Red Bull and, whatever. And your body's not going to appreciate it at some point. You have to nurture, love. And, anything but love is a lie is one of my other mantras, right? That's how you recognize the fear. That's how you recognize a lot of these things. And if you boil everything down to love, right, which it starts with yourself first and becoming selfish, because I can't take care of all of the people that I want to take care of if I'm drained and if I'm sick and if I'm this. And knock on wood, like I have barely been ill in like 6 years, like not even barely a cold, nothing that has, stopped me or held me back. And I'm very grateful for that. But it comes from being selfish, and 5 a.m. is magical because there's no interruptions, because you put that gym or that me time to the end of the day. There's always a reason or a fire to put out or this or that. And then you're getting into that, but I have to go to the gym. I have to go to the gym. There's another quote that I love that I think I might have said when you were on my podcast, but 99% is a bitch and 100% is a breeze. And that gym analogy, like when you're like, I'm 3 days a week, I'm going to go to the gym, or 4 days, the next thing is 3, the next thing is 2, the next thing is 1, the next thing is none. And then you're starting all over again and you hate it and you're just on, right? Because so making these fundamental things daily habits, non-negotiables, no matter what. You know what it feels like to leave the house without brushing your teeth? Have you ever done it? You literally now, like, whatever I got to do, I need a toothbrush and, right? So the things that are your foundation, your fundamentals, you need to make non-negotiable, and that they're done daily. For you coffee drinkers out there, I don't drink coffee, but for you coffee drinkers, what does it feel like in the morning if you forget that coffee? You don't forget that coffee. So why are you forgetting to move your body? Why are you forgetting to breathe? Why are you forgetting to journal? Right? Because those are the things that give you the energy, the power, the stamina, the grit, the resilience, all of those things that you need to truly enjoy this life experience. Because when it gets thrown at you, it feels so good to feel good still.
Yeah. So true. You are so amazing. I absolutely love this conversation. So real quick, I would love for you just to share, like, what's somebody listening, like, what's your ideal client? How could they know that you would be a good fit for their life? What kind of things do you look for in someone who makes an ideal client for you?
So ideal client for me is mostly people who have had levels of success and want to level up in their business and level up in their life, want to tap into like a space of unlimited potential, unlimited joy, unlimited freedom, unlimited profit with soulful prosperity, right? Wants to deepen their relationships, wants to have a beautiful culture within their organization. But as an entrepreneur and business people, these are difficult without support, without systems, without accountability, without goal setting. And these goals and this accountability isn't focused on just your KPIs, although I can come in and do all of that for you, put you on an operating system. It's really helping to, get you, your organization, your team, whatever it is, to mastering these fundamentals, making sure everybody's rowing in the right direction. Maybe there's that like new project you've been wanting to add or grow to your business. I can come in and help you with that. So really it's business owners and entrepreneurs who just want to grow in every way. And there's lots of different programs. I do 2 free things a week. I have a mindset reset on Monday where I'm literally coming on, embodying gratitude and visualizations and affirmations and all this stuff. And then on Fridays, I do something called Empower Hour, which you're going to be on. And on Empower Hour, it's a little bit more about specific skills. It's sometimes mindset, but more specific skills in growing your business. So those things are free. JenniferMaher.com/empowerment. I would love anybody who is looking to level up in those ways, just join. These are free and it's a great little community, and get to know me. And let's see if there's something I can do to support you.
I love that. I mean, you're not going to find anybody more genuine than you, and you have all the success to prove this space. But more importantly, you're a beautiful person inside and out. And
so
I love all of our conversations. So just a couple of just rapid fire at the end. I think inspiration is a big deal. I think impact is a big deal. So I'd love to know who's been the most impactful person on your journey so far.
Well, this changes all the time, and I have a lot. Brian Johnson was one of my first coaches. He runs something called, actually, I got certified through him, this Heroic. So he runs something called Heroic Enterprises. And he's been around like 20 years. I've been following him. And he was the first person in my life that helped me understand that I could be whatever I wanted. Like, I didn't even know I can go to college as a kid. So Brian Johnson, follow him, check out Heroic. I'm a Heroic certified coach. Really, really powerful stuff. It embodies every religion, every philosophy, every work business strategy you can imagine, very mixed into one.
So cool. I love that. Okay, then the other side of it is books. Clearly, you're a reader. What's been the most impactful book of your life?
I'd have to say Dark Side of the Light Traces by Debbie Ford. That's the shadow work book that really helped me tap into my wholeness. And you cannot be authentic without being in your wholeness, which is embracing all of you.
Okay, which ties me into my last question. So the whole theme of this podcast, right, is that your authenticity is your superpower. So in your own words, what does the fact that your authenticity is a superpower, what does that mean for you?
It means the joy and freedom and the profitability and, the prosperity. It means being able to live in that space space in a place of flow where it's not on, off, on, off, on, off. I feel safe. I feel loved. I feel supported because I've accepted all of who I am. There's nobody that can come and hurt me. There's nothing anyone or anything can do to hurt me. That anti-fragility.
That's so good. You are incredible. Thank you so much for this conversation. Last thing, where's the best place for people to find you?
JenniferMaher.com, on Instagram at Jenn Maher, JENNMAHER coach. Hit me up. Let's connect. Let's collaborate. Let's do beautiful things together. Just tell me about your journey. I have a podcast, Soulful Prosperity, on all the platforms, blog, you name it. So check me out. Hit me up. Let me know you're checking me out so we can connect.
Yeah, absolutely. Please, you guys go follow her and all the things. So I'll definitely post all of your links in the bio of this episode. But thank you so much for sharing this day with us and sharing all of your wisdom. You light me on fire. So thank you so much, friend. And we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you.